Like seeing your mom, that's a soft spot for me. My mom, he left my family when I was like 11 or 12. My dad picked us up in the middle of like fourth period or something, and he told us like, your mom's not coming back. I internalized that as like, oh, she wasn't happy, it's my fault. My biggest memories from my mother is just where she would tell me like, I ain't shit, as she's like stomping on me. Like when I think of like manhood, it's my father that pops into my head. If someone were to ask me like, have you seen God? To my dad. Like that man is Superman to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Casualty podcast. Today, I have a special guest, one of my longtime friends, somebody who I feel like has never given up on me, no matter how distant I may seem or shutting out the world. If you're friends with me, you know very well how that works.
What's happening, y'all?
Me and Steve met years ago, actually, like during COVID?
Yeah, around there. Yeah.
During COVID, this random person reached out to me on Instagram pretty much.
Yeah, I was impressed with like your business, like how you set everything up. Especially the way you spoke on your posts and stuff. It was very confident, and I don't see a lot of Polynesians doing that. So I think I remember reaching out to you and I was like, dude, how did you even start all this?
That was pretty much your Instagram message that I remember too.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, like I never entertained anybody really, like not to sound shady, but like on social media, you know, because I'm like, I don't really know people's intentions of like why they're like reaching out to me, but I don't know. I just had a good feeling about you. It's weird.
I appreciate it.
And so out of everyone that sends me DMs, I was like, well, shit, yeah, let's go and get donuts. I think.
I think we did. We had tacos later.
Yeah.
And it's been super cool just kind of getting to know you and your family, the community of friends that you surround yourself with. It was super eye-opening to kind of like just see the quality of people that you surround yourself with, especially.
Thanks.
No, really. Like, I remember going to your birthday party. It was your 30th birthday party. Mm-hmm. But just getting to meet like your mom, your dad, and the friends that you had there, like behind your back, everyone spoke so highly of you.
I mean, it sounds so overstated, like everyone says it, but like you literally are who you surround yourself with.
I'm gonna burp.
Smells like protein chips. But no, it's like so true. You are who you hang out with, and I take that to heart. And so I'm very like selective with friends. It takes me a minute to like finally introduce somebody into my life, you know, like. I've always loved your like presence, and even from day one, I will have to admit, like in the beginning, I was like, what is like your role in my life? Because I feel like I'm very big on roles. Like if somebody new comes into my life, they have to fulfill something, and vice versa. I hope I fulfill something as well.
No, for sure. And that's the thing is with me, and I think a lot of my family and friends know, is I'm always willing to be there for people. But I think that was also part of my downfall. Is I was always willing to be there for people.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? And I was looking at the quality of people that you had around you. And at the time, I felt like, you know, I had a lot of friends. But I don't know if I had the same backing, you know, outside of like immediate family and my own cousins and family like that. I don't know if I had the same backing that I did that you had. And I was super impressed with just the quality that you had. And it was one of those things where I was always asking myself, like, okay, is there something about me that I need to change to, like, is there something that I have to do more of? You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe if there's some boundaries that I need to set more, or maybe just some people that we just don't align anymore, like values wise. And
well, you're also still young. Like, how old are you?
I'm 27 now. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, not too far behind me, but I feel like even me at 27, like if you were to catch me, well, I'm 31, so what's the math on that? 4 years ago?
Yeah, pretty much.
You were to catch me 4 years ago, my circle definitely isn't even how it is now, you know? Actually, I don't even feel like I have a circle right now. I have like a few people that's barely hanging on, you know what I mean?
I get that.
But backing up a little, like just tell us where you're from, like how you grew up, a family life if you want to get into that. But I know you were born in Samoa.
No. So I was born here in Utah. But it's funny because me and my family, we would move back and forth from the States to Samoa. So I was born here. My sister was born in Samoa. It was only me and my little brother that was really born here.
Yeah.
But for the most of my childhood, it was raised back home in Samoa.
And how was that? Like, I've never been to Samoa, but I picture it to be similar to like Hawaii.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously there's a big family and community aspect, right?
Yeah.
Where like no matter what you do in life, like they're always there. But I think that's another problem too, is like they're always there.
That definitely can be a blessing and a curse, you
Yeah,
know, like
yeah.
there's definitely such thing as too much family and too much family time, or I don't know. I just feel like it definitely can be toxic. I am on the other extreme of that, where I am like, I wouldn't say distant from my family, but like I'm very much a lone wolf, I feel, you know?
I think part of it too is like I love the fact that we have kind of that built-in community. At the same time, I think it's important for young Polynesians or just Polynesians in general to like have that time to where they can find out who they are as an individual.
Right. Away from
The
influence,
family and
yes.
stuff. Because then that way you can bring something that only you have to the community.
Yeah.
And it just makes the community stronger, you know. And I feel like sometimes, like going back to my experience growing up in Samoa, like keep in mind, like my first language was English. And going to Samoa, being raised there, like I the language barrier, you know what I'm saying?
So you like nobody spoke English there, or they did?
They spoke English, but obviously, like you're in Samoa, you're around Samoans,
They're speaking their language.
you're gonna be speaking Samoan, and so it's one of those things where like I felt like sometimes I was a little left out on certain things. Like,
But are you fluent now? Do you speak?
I am fluent now. Like I can carry a conversation.
No, that's
you know what
amazing.
I'm saying?
Because my dad speaks fluent Samoan, and he never taught us how. You know. But I wish he did. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of like, I wish he did just for the sake of me knowing like my native tongue. But then also I'm like, well, how would that benefit me in life right now? So
Do you feel like that would make a difference in how you would connect with your culture if you knew it?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I never really thought about it. But I always did feel like growing up, because I grew up here in Utah, very white, I will say. Like with my mom's side, I'm half Samoan, half white and Hawaiian. But I grew up with that side, so I didn't grow up doing the Fa'a Samoa shit or speaking Samoan or like learning about the culture. But I always say like, I wish I learned cultural dance when I was younger, because I have friends from the islands, whether it's Samoa or Hawaii, and just when I see them dance, I'm like, damn, that's culture, bitch.
It's never too late. It's never too late. Matter of fact, shout out to my fiance, Bridget Talia. The wedding's next year, so might have you do your own solo.
A fiance that I've never met.
Yeah.
And we've known each other for what, 3 years or 4?
Going on 4 years now.
Yeah, but I love our friendship because it's like, it's like nobody, it's like you wouldn't expect, you know what I mean? Like I have straight friends obviously, but I have very few straight friends that I can like connect with and talk to. And one common thing between all of them is that they are just like, they're not like toxic in their masculinity. Like they're comfortable in their body. They're not afraid to be seen with a bitch like me. You know what I mean? And it's just like refreshing.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think I have to attribute that to like how I was raised. So I was raised a lot by my older cousins. I call them my sisters. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the Enderman family.
Shout out sisters.
You feel me? But I also have like 2 younger sisters of my own. And so for me growing up, being able to understand, and just the culture itself has a huge amount of respect for the women in general.
Yes,
but
it does.
Growing up with them, like they were able to kind of show me that as a man, you can be strong and still enjoy different things. That being a man is what you are, not necessarily what you do.
In action.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I don't have to necessarily prove my masculinity. It's just something that I am.
It's just who you are.
Exactly.
Period. And that's so refreshing. I wish more men were like that. Like the whole toxic masculinity thing, especially within the Polynesian culture, you know. But that's just like, I feel like that's just how the culture's been for years, and that's not going to change overnight, you know. Do you feel like this might be a hot take, but I feel like when it comes to like Polynesians, I feel like Tongans are like die hard for their culture. Like their culture is everything to them. Samoans, they love their culture, but like not as much as Tongans.
You know what's crazy is like, I feel like the impressive thing about Tongans is like their culture here, especially in America, is stupid strong. Like,
yes.
not saying that, of course, the Samoans are slacking or anything, but the Tongans are just impressive with how strong they keep their traditional ties here, especially in the
Yeah.
States, away from Tonga.
Exactly. I would call them extra. Tongans are definitely extra, you know.
Hey man, you've ever seen their proposals? Like
I've never seen a Tongan proposal.
There's like 100 cans of corned beef. You know what I'm saying?
At a proposal?
At a proposal. It's just a proposal. It looks like a straight up wedding.
Who's eating that corned beef?
Shoot, if I was there, I would be.
Like, who is the corned beef for?
I think it's like a, if I understand correctly, it's like a gift towards the other.
So not
they're
necessarily just
gifts.
corned beef, but like, you know.
There's like boxes of food. There's all these different gifts. Like
Okay,
clothes,
you know what? I do
whatever.
take that back because I've seen a video on social media of bitches bringing cows to the family house.
Yeah.
As like an offering for the bride or something.
Yes. So it's like kind of like a thank you to like the parents. You know what I'm saying? I think the
Of the girl's parents.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm not Samoan, so if
Tongan.
I'm wrong, or Tongan.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I am Samoan.
Can you tell the difference between a Samoan and Tongan?
My dad used to say that we were prettier.
So many people can tell the difference just by looking, but I don't think I can. Yeah,
I can't either, to be honest. Like I can't. I can tell when like someone's fresh off the boat, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
Like we just, like me when I first came back from Samoa, my cousins would be the first one to say it. Like I was rocking my ear. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere, to the grocery store,
Yep.
I showed up to the airport in that, like my little ear in there.
Your Jesus slippers, yep.
The pong specials, you feel me? Like that was crazy just coming from Samoa back to America. Obviously, I remembered it as a little kid, but the culture shock from trying to fully immerse myself back into my own culture and then having to go and kind of learn about the American side of the culture, it was two different worlds.
Two different worlds.
Definitely. Like in respects towards like basically everything. Like how we treat our women. You know what I'm saying?
The excess of shit that we have here in America.
Yeah. Like and there's almost like this weird sense of, obviously Samoa is like, especially Samoa, it's one of those countries where like, not all of us are blessed with a lot of things. And I grew up with my family where we had a taste of that. Like we grew up on that. Like, people, like I used to talk to kids in school, like they said like, yeah, we didn't have much. I had to wake up, make my bed. It was just a single comforter. And I remember thinking to myself like, dang, I woke up and I had to make the floor. Like that was my life. But at the same time, shout out to my dad. You know what I'm saying? He never made it feel like we were missing anything.
Yeah.
Again,
in Samoa.
But it's funny. I think we keep going back to like our parents and stuff. One of the things I was really impressed with was like coming to your birthday party was not only just like the support that you have from your friends, but the obvious love that I could see from your mom and your dad.
Yeah.
And obviously we talked about this before, but like I was like seeing your mom like that's a soft spot for me because like my mom, she left my family when I was like 11 or 12. So, and I haven't seen her in years. In Samoa. So like I came here back to the States with my dad, and he went back maybe a year or two later to get the rest of my siblings and bring them here.
And did your mom stay there?
My mom said she was coming with my family, and she never did. Which was crazy because the memories that she left of herself with me and my siblings, honestly, when we got the news that like, I still remember the day, like I was in middle school. My dad picked us up in the middle of like fourth period or something. And he told us like, your mom's not coming back.
Wow.
And
how old were you?
I was 13.
And that's like a very impressionable age,
I still remember the day, like me and my sister, we talked about it too, where I wish I could say I was sad about it. There's a weird sense of relief.
Why relief?
large parts of my personality, I think my family understands it in a sense, but there's a big part of me that still wants approval from people, that still wants to be loved from people. A lot of that, because one of my biggest memories from my mother is just those times where she would tell me like I ain't shit. You know what I'm saying?
She would tell you that
as she's like, you know, stomping on me or doing certain things. And obviously there's a lot of discipline in the Polynesian community, right?
Y'all need to stop beating your kids like
stop
that.
doing that, man. Stop doing
spanking, yes. Spank their ass or something.
There's a difference between discipline and just straight up abuse.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand.
Yeah. And I felt like the memories I have of my mother, it was just nothing but that.
Yeah.
And I feel like a large part of my childhood was I internalized that as like, oh, she wasn't happy. It's my fault.
Right. Because you're 13, you know.
And I'm a kid. I don't know that.
Right. We're you're kids. You know? We're not thinking as with adult thoughts of like, you know, what we think now.
Like the mom should have been the one to. Yeah. And it's crazy how like my understanding. It's crazy how growing up and seeing the people around me who knew what was going on, like how they reacted to it. Like, oh, you gotta have understanding towards your mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's still your mom.
And I feel like that's toxic too.
I hated that.
You don't know what people have been through with their parents, their mom, their dad. So saying stuff like, well, she's still your mom. You have to love her. That's still your dad. Shut your ass up with that shit, you know? Like,
bro, like it felt like they were projecting, like in a sense, like they were thinking like, oh, if that were me in this situation, I would want to be treated this way, but you're not.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And the craziest thing is like, I still remember how angry I was. Like me and my sister, like I remember we went and played basketball. We just angry. Also, that's the day where I found out I could dunk. So that's
we're about the same height, I think, right?
Yeah, like 6'4".
Same height. Yeah, you're just a little buffer than me, but we're working on it.
That's gonna be a separate project that's coming later.
We're getting
Stay tuned. But it's one of those things where I definitely don't take for granted the influence that my father's had for me. Yeah, like you hear stories about single mothers, you know, stepping up and taking care of their kids. Like my dad was that hero for me.
Right. And I don't think we give enough kudos to fathers out there. Single fathers, yeah. Like single mothers, like, oh my God, you're such a hero. Like, what about the single dads? You know,
and you know, it's crazy. I appreciate, you know, how you've been praising me about, you know, this toxic, you know, having a lack of toxic masculinity and stuff like that. I feel like a big part of not just my sisters being a big part of it, but it was my dad too. Right. So my dad would always repeat, you know, the Samoan phrase of, you know, you got to treat other people well.
How do you say that in Samoan?
You know, treat your friends good. You know what I'm saying? Like, treat them with respect and love. You know what I'm saying? And my dad would be the one to kind of, I've seen his example of how he's treated his siblings, you know, his friends. And like when I think of like manhood, it's my father that pops into my head. Like if someone were to ask me to, like, have you seen God? To my dad. Right. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, like that man is Superman to me. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? To where I'm just grateful that I have like a real man to look at and emulate. Right. You know what I'm saying? And the biggest thing I hope to do is, I remember there was like a church talk where there was a phrase that they said where like he had met all these famous people, and I feel like I've met a lot of really successful, really awesome people, but the ones that stood out to me are the good ones. Like they're just good. Yeah. Like for the sake of, you know. Yeah, you know, like they're it's good.
An energy. It's just the way they move, the way they make you feel.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Like they focus on being genuinely kind.
Yeah.
Not nice. Right. Kind. And funny enough, I feel like you probably emulate that difference more starkly than anyone I know.
The difference between
being kind and being nice.
Explain that for the viewers.
Yeah. So
and me.
Like I think when most people think like nice, they think of like just someone you can walk all over. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, you can do whatever, you can say whatever, and he'll forgive you. You know, and you know you can go about your day. Kindness is almost that tough love type feeling where, yes, I make space for you, I have love for you, but not at my expense.
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I will not sacrifice my happiness because you don't know how to get any.
Right. And I feel like that's just like more on a broader topic too. That runs very deeply within just the Polynesian culture, you know, of Polynesians just overextending themselves to the point where it is a detriment to your financial situation or your happiness. Or I just know so many people who are like in the culture, whether it's Tongan or
like,
Samoan.
Bro, they're struggling, you know what I'm saying? But they're still giving.
And it drives me crazy. I have very close friends, you know, that are like that. And I'm like, I love our culture, don't get me wrong, but to a certain extent. I feel like to a certain extent, the culture then becomes like toxic to yourself.
And you know what's funny is like growing up in Samoa, I understand that, you know, we would give what we could. That was always the basis of our giving was we would give what we could give. Not give to where like
you're starving.
Damn near we're all in debt, you know what I'm saying? Like I ain't got no food of my own, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was always supposed to be giving from, you know, if I can, I will. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like that aspect of the culture is a little bit lost, especially here in America where everyone's trying to flex. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Everyone's trying to flex money that honestly
you don't have.
We don't have.
They probably scammed from other Polynesians. Don't want to name drop, but
you know, you know what I'm saying. And it's one of those things. Like I feel like it got away from us. Like we kind of lost the plot of, you know, yes, we are giving and very loving people, but it was always within the boundaries of that kindness.
Okay, so that's interesting. Do you feel like that aspect on the giving part is a American thing that Polynesians picked up? Because, for example, like in the islands, like you were taught, give what you could.
Yeah.
But here in America, people give to the point where it's all for show. They want to make themselves come out, look to be, you know, or have more than they have. Like, is the showy aspect of it an American thing that was learned from islanders that came here, do you think?
I think it's one of those things where because we have social media, you know what I'm saying? Like we have so many eyes. And one of the things I hate is like, I think people love to compare. Like they always compare. And what's worse is like, they compare like, oh well, so and so gave so much to the wedding. So and so gave.
Let me one up that.
You know, and they trying to one up. They're not. I don't know if they're subconscious, like they're consciously doing it. You know what I'm saying? But they might have. It might have just gotten to like, oh, let me just do a little bit and then a little bit, and it just got way out of hand.
And that's where the toxicity of money comes in. Not to get all biblical, but I was in.
No, we can get biblical. You know what I'm saying? We can get biblical. You know?
I think it was in 1 Corinthians or 2 Corinthians where it talks about giving, and it's not about how much you give, but it's about the intent in which you give it. And there's a parable, and I forget which book in the Bible about what is it, like somebody poor giving their all compared to somebody that is rich and giving just their surplus.
Yes.
You know?
So I think it was where, you know, all these rich, you know, statesmen, these wealthy people that came, they were emptying like buckets of money into, you know, the church coffers. And this poor lady with her kid, you know, she comes and she offers just a coin. And the Savior saying, she has given more than any of these people.
Exactly, yes.
And I think sometimes there's a very important nuance where people might get confused, like especially Polynesian culture, where we say like, yeah, the lady gave everything she had. No, she gave what she could.
Right.
Like that was from her heart. You know what I'm saying? She knew that giving to God will multiply her blessings. And honestly, I don't know if when she was given that her receiving back a blessing was the most important thing in her mind. She just wanted to give. And I think that's one thing where I'm interested to see if we were to take away social media, if we were to like not know like what so and so was doing, or what they were giving, like how the culture would shape to be.
Right, when you're
You
not
know?
given a platform to
Exactly.
boast about it.
To boast about it. You know what I'm saying? And I get the difference between, hey, we just trying to celebrate, so and so. We just trying to show out for so and so. That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do think there's a difference between being celebrated and being put on a pedestal.
Absolutely.
It's interesting how, because I know you grew up mostly here in the States, yeah?
Yes, I was born in Seattle.
In Seattle, yeah. So tell me, like, because for me, I grew up in Samoa, obviously. So I understand there was such a huge shift from living there versus growing up here.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think my last year of middle school going into high school, that was me growing up here in the States. But I always wondered what it was like just growing up here and experiencing the culture from the States.
Yeah.
And if there was like any big difference.
Well, I feel like, just specifically how I grew up, just very like Caucasian, like which without any culture. To be honest, I never really cared. I never really gave a shit about my culture. I never did. Obviously, the older that I get and the more I grow up, I'm wanting to go to Samoa and like experience that. My dad, he's a glazer, a professional window installer. He's been doing that for years. But anyway, they built a temple years ago. This was probably when I was in junior high school, or
Okay.
I don't know if it was American or
I think
or
it might be the
Western.
one in Western Samoa.
But he was his company was the one that was contracted to do the glazing for that temple, and
okay, cool.
so he came back from like that experience of like working there for a couple years, flying back and forth, and he would just tell us here, like, you guys need to go to American Samoa or wherever it was, or Western Samoa. Where was it? The temple?
Western Samoa.
Western Samoa, because you guys, it will just make you appreciate like everything you have. And like, you guys don't know, he was telling me about these little boys that would stand around the temple grounds of the workers and try to sell like fans or food or whatever it may be, just to like get money, And my dad came back one day with maybe like 20 hand fans from Samoa that he bought. He gave this kid a surplus of money and bought all of his fans out. And my dad said like the light on that kid's face when my dad handed him that much money, I don't know how the money conversion works over there, just like lit his face up. And so he always told us we needed to go there to appreciate what we have. And my ass at the time, I was younger. I don't think like this anymore, but I was like, I don't need to go to fucking Samoa. I'm already grateful for what I have, blah, blah, blah. Now I look back and I'm like, well, yeah, shit, I want to go there and I'm not saying they're like super poor or like they're less than us, but like it's a different, like you said, it's culture shock.
I always thought it was weird too, to like just go there to be more appreciative of what you have here.
Yes, that was my dad's point,
I think it's more meaningful to just go there and to be able to like have this appreciation for the struggles that like my parents or my grandparents had in bringing my family here.
Yeah.
Just like that huge transition. I think the only reason why the transition for me from Samoa to here was so easy-ish was because I knew English. Like, because mindset wise, like I was still thinking the same as I would in Samoa. Like, when I would sit down to eat and I remember kids just walking by me, and in Samoan culture, someone walked by, it's rude to just walk by and not say nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Especially if I'm eating, like I would look at these kids like, man, they damn disrespectful ass kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it was crazy because I remember like, back home, you wouldn't stand up and eat. You wouldn't, do all these certain little things. So even here, I was practicing that. You know what I'm saying? We're like, if I'm eating like a Snickers bar, I'm sitting straight down in the hallway. Like I'm sitting down in the hallway.
You're not eating standing up?
I'm not eating standing up. Like
Interesting.
I would sit down in the hallway.
Yeah.
And I would eat my Snickers bar. And when I'm done, I get up and I'm just walking down the hallway. You know?
Yeah.
And so the transition was a little bit easier for me because I knew the language and people could explain to me, like, oh, it's okay here, like this is what we do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I remember one of the biggest moments of culture shock was when I think this kid was talking back to his teacher, You know what I'm saying? And in my mind, I'm thinking, oh man, the
Oh,
teacher.
that was me in high school.
You know, in my mind, I'm thinking, you know, because back in Samoa, you know, teachers would keep like these big old sticks. You know what I'm saying?
You would get hit by your teachers.
We would, and that was normal. Like that was a normal thing. Like I remember, if a teacher was to leave a classroom, she would make a kid get up and make a list of kids that were misbehaving.
Oh, wow.
And so this kid would be like, she or he would hold all the power. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, all right, y'all behave. And if she didn't like you or he didn't like you, he just write your name up. Teacher comes back, sees your name on the board. All right, line up. And the stick would come out. And so you would hold your hand out.
That's just normal there. That's just normal. The culture.
You know,
it's
that
like
was,
your teachers are your uncles and your aunts.
Exactly.
You know?
That's exactly the thing. Like there was no, like the phrase of "it takes a village" is very literal.
Right.
Back home, like everybody takes a hand, and very seriously too, in raising you.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Can I get weird for a minute?
Yeah.
Because it takes a village, you know, and everybody has a hand in raising. Do you think it's weird that if, like, for instance, you were breastfed by one of your aunts when you were little, a baby?
I don't even.
I know that shit took a turn, but let me explain.
That took a left turn.
My mom told me, this was years ago, but obviously my mom has 6 sisters that are alive and all around the same age. We all grew up together with my cousins, and so they were pregnant and having babies around the same time. And my mom dropped a bomb that I just wanted to gag my stomach out and said that my oldest aunt would breastfeed us sometimes when she would babysit. And I'm like,
just makes the bonds closer.
I felt disgusted.
Just the bonds are closer.
Anyway, I'm sorry. That took a
just
turn.
Makes your family bonds closer.
The trauma just came right back.
But that's funny though, because it's like
just sucking on my aunt's tit.
Just like I said, the family bonds is like
yeah. But back to Samoa. That's the mainland shit, probably. I don't know.
I ain't never heard nothing about that. Hey, yo.
Down.
I ain't never. Hold on, let me
just us. That was the white side then. Holy shit.
I ain't never heard of that.
Yeah, no. So I guess like growing up, to answer that, to go back to your question, I didn't grow up very like cultural or anything like that, but I did learn a lot from my grandparents in Hawaii. Very Samoan. They've never left the island. Well, they have, but my grandma and my grandpa, my dad's parents, very Fa'a Samoa. So those little things that you were just talking about American kids not tulo, like when you walk by, like that was totally me just getting my ass up and walking and just doing my own thing. But
and you know what's crazy is like I do that now with my nephews and my nieces.
Like teach them.
I teach them like if they walk past like my sisters or their own moms and stuff like that, and they won't say tulo, you know what I'm saying? I'm pulling them over like, hey, make sure you say tulo. Like that's just respectful culture.
Or this glass cup is gonna end
like,
up in
I mean, I don't know if I'd be doing that, but and it's crazy because I feel like those little things are important because I don't know if I feel like it builds a bond for them because it's beautiful to me to have a culture that stretches, like it's so old.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And in a weird way, I feel like it's a testament to, you know, our people's strength of like, we're still here.
Yeah.
Like we still remain. And I guess my question for you would be like, because obviously you growing up the way that you did here in the States, like, and your relationship with culture has kind of evolved over time.
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, we've been dogging low key on the Samoan and Tongan culture. You feel me?
Love y'all.
But like, love y'all, you know, to death. But like, what do you think the culture has done for you? That like, what have you taken from it?
That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying? That you know, stays with you. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I've never really thought about that. I feel like I really appreciate the side of our culture that is respectful. You know, like my friends that grew up in the islands, I admire them so much because of how like humble and respectful they are, you know, and it's like such a contrast. I feel like maybe the cultures just kept me humble, or like at least tried to, like my friends are examples to me of like, okay, like a reminder that fuck, I'm Americanized, like, damn, I didn't grow up like y'all, but like I learn and I observe and I'm like, I don't know. I take notes. That's a good question.
That's
I haven't
awesome.
thought about
That's
that.
awesome. And I say that because I feel like the cool thing about, there's a low key animosity between the ones who grew up in Samoa versus the ones who grew up purely here. And I feel like they don't talk about that a lot.
Unpack that.
Because like I remember being in the States for maybe a year or two, and then I would have my cousins from Samoa who would finally see me back here. And I remember them looking around and, they speaking in Samoan, saying like, man, these people's whitewashed. You know what I'm saying?
I hear that all the time. I'm a plastic Samoan.
Plastic Samoan, you know what I'm saying? And it's crazy because I was labeled that all the time in Samoa because I couldn't even speak the language at the time. And it's funny because as time has gone by, I bring up the strengths of the culture because what I feel like most people don't talk about is how the Samoans and Tongans that grew up here in the States or, New Zealand or Australia, wherever you were, I feel like they bring a fresh perspective to the culture.
Yeah.
That just, going back to, having that time to be an individual, they bring a fresh change that just makes the culture stronger in the sense of like they're able to recognize, I think, the heart of the culture, if that makes sense. Like the giving, but don't give to where like it's hurting you.
Right.
Like they can recognize that, especially being in a place like America where everything costs money. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to my cousins back in Samoa. Not everything. I'm not rich. I'm not rich over here. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Is there a misconception that all Polynesians here are or have more than them?
I think there's definitely pressure because I've seen it in my aunties and uncles, you know what I'm saying, where like there's pressure to like, they feel like there's a responsibility low key to give to their family and friends back in Samoa, because they recognize that material wise they might have more.
Yeah. Material wise. Yes.
You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, going back to the strengths of like the generations that grew up here, they're able to recognize like, hey, there's a way where we can have both.
Right.
Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can have both. Like there's room for all that. You know what I'm saying? But I'm definitely grateful for, I think one of the things I've taken from the culture for sure is that identity that is older than me. I'm grateful for that, because it makes me feel like I'm connected to something that.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy because I will see another Samoan, like in Cali or wherever I'm at, Florida even, and I automatically know, like, we both know cultural cues. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And
I have to touch on that because 2 years ago I went to Bali and it was the worst trip of my actual life. Like I never will go back to Bali ever again in my life. And it was such a horrible trip. I think I was in Bali for like a week and a half. And on Instagram, I even made a story about this because anyway, I got to the airport in Bali to come back to America. And while I was like walking through the airport of Bali, first of all, I am just spent. Emotionally, I'm drained. Physically, I'm drained. It was a horrible trip. And I see, and I'm in Bali, or what is the country? It's not Bali.
Indonesia.
I'm in Indo-fucking-nesia at the airport, walking in the terminals. And I see a Polynesian couple. Mind you, I've been there in Indonesia for like a week and a half, and I just have not seen my people, And so the second I saw this Polynesian couple walk by, like it put a smile on my face. And in my head, I was like, damn, I kind of just want to go up and say hi. Like I just haven't been around my kind.
How did that feel, like seeing them? Like,
oh my God, like it made me so happy. So happy that I opened my phone on Instagram and I was like, bitch, I just saw a Polynesian couple. I kind of want to go up and say hi. But like we looked at each other, and there was just like you were saying, that immediate understanding of like, we have that connection. And in that moment, like I felt safe. Like my whole trip to Indonesia,
I love that.
I felt completely unsafe. Like I went on a group trip. I didn't join any of the activities. I stayed in my hotel room because it was just a nightmare trip. But the second I saw this Polynesian couple, I just felt this like safety that like you can't get from looking at any other culture that's not yours, you know? I don't know. So it's just that connection of like, yes, I come from something, you know? And obviously they were complete strangers. I didn't know who they were or where they were from, but it was just like, okay, like if I'm like, if an emergency happened or, you know, if I'm struggling with something, I'm immediately looking for them, you know, like
that's crazy.
So anyway, it was just, that was a very like profound thing for me when I realized that.
You know, it's funny. It kind of brings to mind, like, I don't know if it's like, obviously there's these things called like third spaces, right? Where
I've never heard of that.
But apparently it's like, you know, think of like an arcade back in the day, you know, after school or work, people would come, they'd play video games, you know what I'm saying? And that was like a place for the community to hang out, like a park. You know?
Okay.
Like third spaces where communities could be created and, you know, people could like create connections and feel safe. Like, hey, I know that guy, that's my neighbor. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like there's such an unfair advantage sometimes culture-wise for us because we come with a built-in third space.
Yes.
And low-key, especially during COVID and all those times, I feel like that's where having those third spaces, those communities, like really came in for us, because I don't think there's ever a moment where I feel like I'm by myself, especially if I see another Polynesian like person, you know what I mean? And it's crazy because I looked at the stats. It's like, I think worldwide, just Samoans alone, there's only 2 million of us.
Wow.
Like, imagine that. Like, there's literally.
And it seems like they're all right here in Salt Lake City, Utah.
You know what I mean? They're all somewhere down there in West Valley. You know? But it's crazy because, you know, 2 million Samoans. And what's crazier is than that, I think like the U.S. Like stats for how many, like the U.S. population, like there's 0.05 of all like Micronesians, Melanesians, Tongans, all that put together. We make up 0.05 of the U.S. population.
We are so rare if you think about that.
Low key, man. Like, we limited edition type.
And I feel like that's what was going through my mind when I was in Indonesia. You know, I'm like, wow, I mean, I didn't know that Polynesians travel to Indonesia, but like, God, it just made me feel so good. And I'm actually so thankful for, you know, our culture, even though I didn't grow up very like culturally, whatever. I'm like so thankful for it because it is a place of safety for me. It is a place of like learning and a place of like humbleness that I know, like if I need to be humbled or like comforted or like feel loved, like I gravitate towards my people, like even like my mom or even just white people in general. I am so glad that I am not just white, you know, because imagine not having fucking culture. Like, you have hamburgers, hot dogs, and lawnmowers, bitch. Like, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, just
what you got? I got hot dogs.
No, yeah. Like, I couldn't imagine not having a culture like that. So,
I mean, it's funny because going back to that knowing, you know what I'm saying, that we have between peoples, I think that was one of the reasons why I was so comfortable reaching out to you. You know what I'm saying? The first time I met you, because it was one of the first few times where I seen like a Polynesian entrepreneur who was so outspoken. And in my mind, when I saw you, it was like, oh, what's up, Boos? So I was like, you know what I mean? And that's one thing I love about, you know, people that are straight from the islands. And I take that lesson from them all the time, is like when they see other Samoans, man, they chat up with you like they've been knowing you. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, where your parents from? Where your mom from? Oh, man, my uncle's from around the way, like around there. You know what I'm saying?
It's like you're immediately trying to find that connection.
Exactly. And I love how, like, once they see, I think they understand, and I think it's something that I take to heart too, where like they understand, like, sometimes like we're all we have. You know what I mean? And like we have that understanding, like when I see another Samoan, like I think about that sometimes. So I like, hey, what's up, Boos? You know, just give a little head nod.
And it's always like a welcome back, you know, it's a two-way street. And I feel like in that moment in that Indonesian airport, I feel like if I did engage with conversation with them, they would have welcomed me with open arms, because that's just how we are.
That's what I'm saying. And it's crazy. Like, I love that influence. And I feel like that's going back to like talking about like what I was doing with my nephews and my nieces and stuff. I know you have nephews and nieces as well. And I've seen you show up to their volleyball games. You're a very active presence in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, how does it feel knowing that you're kind of that extension of the culture for them?
You know what's funny is I don't think they look at me as an extension of the culture.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like I feel very like misplaced a lot of the times when it comes to like culture. You know, like I do feel like I don't fit in a lot of the times with our culture, and I do feel like people also are telling me I don't fit in, you know, but that's something that I know, not necessarily a bad thing, you know, but it's just like a knowing of like, yeah, I'm kind of just a floater. I feel sometimes I'm not like fully entrenched in the Samoan culture. I'm just really out here doing my own thing, you know. I wish I was closer with the culture, but I didn't grow up like that. And I don't know, I feel like it's too late for me now.
See, but that's crazy because in my mind, I've heard that same story from a lot of my cousins, from a lot of family. And I think what's important about your story is that you, like, when people see this, they're able to like identify like, I'm not just a floater. Like, there's other Polynesians that feel the same way that I do.
Yeah.
There's this wonderful Mexican activist. I gotta search up her name when I find it, but one of the quotes that she said was she wasn't born in Mexico, but she was a super strong Mexican activist where she was saying Mexicans can be from wherever or be anything they want to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like you being yourself, you know what I'm saying, being this Polynesian entrepreneur where you have this really cool style of clothing, you know what I'm saying, you have your own flair, you know what I mean, I feel like it gives people permission, especially in the culture, to be themselves, to explore.
Yes. And I'm all about that. And I will say this might be a little controversial, but I feel like part of the reason I have been so successful in life is because I am distant from my culture. Like, I feel like a lot of the times, like, your culture to a certain degree can hold you back from doing things, sure, out of respect of like, you just want to please your parents, you want to please your grandparents, and if they tell you that they want you to go to school or they want you to do something, you do that out of respect, whether you want to do that thing or not. You
know what's funny is I read a quote the other day where it talked about your parents will prioritize your safety over your success.
Yes, exactly.
So, not that they don't want you to succeed.
Yeah, no fault of their own.
You know what I'm saying? But they want you to be safe. You know, they love you. You know what I'm saying? But I keep thinking back to like, especially with the popularity of like Moana, you know what I'm saying, those films where they do a good job of showing like the unity between Pacific people.
Yes.
But also the aspect that we were the best sailors in the world. We explored, like, the Pacific Ocean is literally like the size of Pluto.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we was finding islands, and I can only think like someone had to like have the guts to like, hey, y'all stay here, I'm gonna go look out. You know what I'm saying? I want to see what's out there.
Yeah.
You know? And I feel like every time I see people like you know what I'm saying, or other people who may feel like, you know, maybe they're not really part of the culture, I think you're extending it. I feel like
that's interesting.
You know what I'm saying? I feel like you're opening up the borders of what it means to be Samoan. You know what I'm saying? To be Polynesian.
And maybe I'm actually getting like culture confused with traditions.
Okay, you know? Yeah.
Because traditionally, hell no, there was nothing Samoan in my household growing up other than when my dad got pissed off and was beating my older brother. But but culture, so I guess like obviously that this is my culture. You know, this is who I am, regardless of what people think. I think it's maybe just the traditions side of that where I practice nothing. You know.
But I think it's the same thing that we were talking about earlier with like the toxic masculinity. You know, being a man isn't what you're trying to be; it's just what you are.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing with being Samoan. I don't think you need to try to be Samoan.
Drop that mic, Steve.
You know what I'm saying? You feel me? You know, you don't have to try to be Samoan. You just are. So whatever you're doing as a Samoan, you are Samoan. You know
well, thanks for. I don't hear that. I really don't, you know.
You know,
it's nothing I like desire, like yearn to hear. It's just something I know, you know.
And see, the cool thing is like obviously we have someones who are powerful in the traditions. They practice everything. You know what I'm saying? But we also have people like you who are exploring those borders of what it means to be Polynesian. And I don't think, again, going back to like, I don't think it has to be like a either this or this thing.
Yeah.
I think we have room for all of it. And, you know, I've always been the type of person where like, if people tell me like, you can only have this option or this option, who's you talking to? I want all of it.
Yeah.
Like, who are you to say I can't have this? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's like, I think it's the same thing. I don't ever want to put limits on what the Samoan people can be or just Pacific people in period. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't ever want to be the one to limit ourselves because there's going to be plenty of people who are going to tell you like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the part.
You can't be that.
And out of just like being a traditional Samoan, I just feel like a lot of youth, they hold themselves back from going as far as they could because of that like respect aspect of the traditions, I guess, not necessarily culture. Well, I guess culture too. And so, yeah, I just feel like depending on how you look at it or how you're raised, being very entrenched in the culture, whether it's Samoan or Tongan or whatever it is, can to a certain degree hold you back in life. But I love what you said, and thanks for saying that, of just being like an extension to the culture, because I never thought about it like that.
I really do.
I really literally always thought like, oh, I'm out here doing my own thing. I'm not even fucking Samoan, bitch.
Like I really do think that. Like I remember this wonderful, you know, old lady back in Samoa where she would tell me and anybody who would listen, like, if you got a drop of blood of you that's Samoan, you are ours.
Yes, and I love that.
Know? And, you know, I would grow up listening to the old Samoan songs, you know, where they would have different lyrics talking about how, you know, no matter where you go, this is your home. You know what I'm saying? It's not just a place, it's in you. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's important to remind our own people, not just Samoan people or Pacific people in general, but there are going to be people that are going to tell you that you can't do things.
Right.
Like you just got to look at a comment section, you know what I'm saying? Whenever you
look
post
at my
something.
Instagram comments.
You know what I mean? Like, you just got to look at a comment section. There's always people like nitpicking things. Like, even if you tell like a big dream, and I think that's where sometimes Polynesian youth are a little scared sometimes, because if they tell a dream that maybe hasn't been done before or is a little weird, you know what I'm saying?
You know what I think?
I want to be a streamer. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I think about that? I feel like also, along with our culture, you know, of being like respectful and humble, we are a bunch of clowns, right? And so I understand that aspect of like, if you put an idea out there and you're met with like your brothers or your cousins or whoever it is clowning you, sure, it may be funny to you guys, but like at the same time, that little dream in that kid's head is like, it dies, being shut down.
Like, it dies right there.
Out of just trying to be funny and like, you know, clowns. That's just who we are.
I mean, at the same time, like I can tell the difference between someone who's laughing with me and who's laughing at me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think with Polynesians too, hey, you know what I'm saying? We might as well just call it out right here. There's a lack of resolution skills.
Absolutely.
You know, conflict resolution skills where you just kind of use humor to laugh off every problem.
Everything. I struggle with that too, you know.
Exactly. And that's the
thing. I'd be laughing through my fucking depression. I'd be laughing when I got out of the mental hospital. I'm like, damn, that was funny. Damn. But it's like a defense, you know, that goes up in us, is just humor. We cover everything with humor.
And see, that's the thing is, I understand that place of being able to laugh at it, because otherwise you just can't stop crying. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I think that's a separate matter from when we're just being mean.
Yes.
Like, straight up just being mean.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people who don't know how to read the room or not know when enough is enough, you know? I grew up with an older brother who was a clown, and he didn't know when enough wasn't enough. You know, love him to death today, but like, he wasn't very friendly growing up. He was kind of an asshole, actually. So.
And what's crazy is like people will look at you and say like that's just part of the culture. You know,
Yeah.
no, it's not.
We're just a bunch of clowns. Like,
You know, that's just normal. That's just, you know, that's family. No,
right.
it's not.
No, it's disrespect.
No, it's not. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I think there's like two different things that can happen from that is where you either have a kid who grows up, okay, I'll be nice. You know what I'm saying? And they let whatever just fly. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh yeah, it's funny, it's a joke, they laugh along. But what they don't, it's kind of sad because I don't know if a lot of people are aware of it, but they're laughing with their family. And sooner or later, they don't take themselves seriously.
Mm-hmm. And it's sad. I've seen many dreams die, you know, and had I let the comments, I'm not going to name drop, but of like people in my life, whether they were, you know, family members or family members that just say really passive aggressive things towards, like in the beginning when I was first trying to start my credit business 8 years ago, I was met.
How was that? I was, you know, just, that must have been crazy just from being, I don't know if you ever told your family and the reaction from them.
I've never unpacked this with my family because I feel like at this point, like what for? You know, like I'm sitting where I am, you know, you guys are sitting where you are. And I just feel like at the time though, the one thing that I learned in entrepreneurship that shocked me, like the biggest lesson for me out of everything, was how the ones close to you react to what you're trying to do. Like that was a shock to me, just like the passive aggressive comments and like, no one's going to support that shit. Oh, you're over here, blah, blah,
Seriously?
blah. Like, oh yeah, from close family, you know? And obviously you laugh it off at the time. But like you said, I can feel when people are laughing at me or being malicious with that. And so that was the hardest thing for me to learn as an entrepreneur.
Like you can feel their intent.
I feel their intent, yeah. And that was the hardest thing for me to learn as an entrepreneur out of everything, the marketing, the finances, everything. The hardest part was me realizing how people react to when you're trying to think outside of the box and do something different, and trying not to let those comments or those thoughts like kill that passion was the biggest struggle for me.
Do you feel like that changed you, like in a negative way or a positive?
In a negative way? Absolutely. Because there's like resentment that I have towards a lot of family members, whether it's little comments they said that they were unaware or really affected me at the time, but I remember those things, you know. I remember every little joke or every little comment about my businesses or what I'm trying to start. And like in a weird way, it also like fueled me to be like, oh, this bitch said this, I'm gonna show this bitch, you know.
That's crazy.
So it's kind of like, yeah, it absolutely impacted me in a negative way. And this is one piece of advice that I have to give to every entrepreneur out there, especially if you're Polynesian and dealing with like the passive aggressive clown comments from your family, is like, don't let that like change you. You know what I mean? Don't let that stuff anger you, because I let it get to me and I became angry at many people.
Do you regret that?
No, I don't, because that was like my defense mechanism at the time, you know. And some of these people I still am distant from, you know, because of something they said 5 years ago. Maybe I need to check myself with that toxic trait, but people just don't realize the impact that their words have when it comes to, it doesn't even just have to be business, about any life choice that somebody wants to make, you know.
And you know what's crazy is like people will say like, oh, you were just being sensitive. You know what I'm saying? Oh, they didn't really mean it like that. It wasn't that serious. But I feel like that was always a cop out, you know, to like not face the consequences of how you made another person feel. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And what's funny is like just looking at it, you know what I'm saying? The comparison between what you just told me versus, you know, the community that I saw around you. You know, like that's a stark difference. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, it came everybody out of cheering up on, you know, everybody's cheering you on. You know what I'm saying? Like that's such a stark difference. Like,
and I think now that you're saying that, and I'm putting that together, that is the result of the experiences that I had starting my business and hearing all these passive aggressive stuff. Like I had to start closing my circle and closing my ears to some people, because I'm like, oh wow, like you really don't believe in me. You really feel this way towards my business. You really like doubt me, you know? So I feel like the reason I have such a strong community and small group of people around me is because of that. So that's kind of what I meant when I say, like, I hope my advice is just like for people starting businesses is don't let that change you to that extreme. Because for me, that changed me to the extreme. You know, before I was like, oh, loving everybody and whether they're family or not. And then after those experiences early on in my business, I'm like, put the wall up. And now I'm like very selective of who I let over that wall.
It was interesting to me to see your journey from, I think it was last year in August, around that time, where you started reading the Bible. And it was beautiful to me to see that transition from, obviously, you know, you're the Kona that we all know and loved. And I've appreciated you and your friendship, but to see how you grew from, it was such a genuine journey.
Yeah.
Which is what touched me. Was like, it was funny too, because, you know, if you didn't like something, man, this is bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You would call it out, and I loved that because it was authentic. You know what I'm saying? You weren't trying to sugarcoat anything. You weren't trying to, like, you know. And I loved how you could gradually see with every post, with every story, like. And in a strange way, I was very grateful that happened for you, because it felt like it wasn't, not to bring it to me or anything, but like in a strange way, it felt like I didn't have to worry as much anymore. Like I felt like, oh, he's got God. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
He got somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like he, obviously, God looking out for you all the time. You know what I'm saying? But now it was like you could see him sitting next to you. You know what I'm saying?
And why does that make you emotional?
I know what it's like to be alone. You know what I'm saying? And what's worse is to be in a room full of people and still feel like they ain't nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't understand what's going on here. To be honest, my relationship with God and like going to church and stuff isn't the strongest as I would like it to be. You know what I'm saying? But the one thing I feel like has always remained has been the love that I've felt from him, the companionship that I felt from him, that is very personal to me.
Very personal.
That, you know, no matter what people say, like that can't be taken from me. Like I have felt his love in my life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's been such a huge comfort to me when you feel like there's nothing else, when there's no one else. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you feel like no one understands.
Yeah. No, and I love that you're saying that, because I did feel alone, you know, practically my whole life. Last year was horrible for me.
That, man. I'm sorry about that. Like,
we all experience it, you know. I know we've had our conversations, but like, yeah, I'm so glad that I found God, you know, and I'm grateful for you also, just for being an example for me. Even back 3 years ago when I didn't have God, you know, you were just always consistent with like your faith, you know, and your love for God. And although you weren't directly like trying to bring me to Jesus, like just your presence alone was enough. And sometimes I think that's enough. That's all you need, you know.
Man, you know, I really appreciate that, you know, because I can be so hard on myself. You obviously, we've had our conversations about that, where we can be our biggest critics. But like, the biggest thing I've always loved about the Savior and what I've always wanted to emulate from him was the fact that anyone that was around him, it was like they were melting into, obviously, the hands of their God, like their Father.
It's a crazy experience. Do you remember the first time you had an experience like that, where you were like, because did you grow up?
I did.
With religion or God or whatever?
I did.
Yeah. So do you remember, because I always think like, because I did too, you know, I grew up in a church, but like, I feel like I never had that experience of like, oh my God, like of God actually touching down and like lending a hand on my shoulder and letting me know that he's here. Like I never had that experience until last year. So do you remember a time where you had that experience?
It's actually a funny story. Obviously this was back in Samoa. And back in Samoa, you know, with the knowledge that I have of what I was, you know, disclosure wise, mental health, you know, I was suffering from depression from a very young age. I didn't know that, you know, so I just thought I was sad, you know. And it was one of those days where I was a little kid, you know, I think I was 10 or something like that.
Wow, that early.
That
Oh,
early.
wow.
That early. And I remember walking down the street on Samoa. I was going home, carrying like a bag of groceries. And I felt like there was nothing that could cheer me up. Like, what am I going to do? I was overthinking. Like, I didn't understand what was going on. I just knew that's what it was. And in Samoa, they have all these, vehicles. Obviously, they have like these special buses, right? That are colorfully decorated. They got sound systems. Some of them damn near, they had entertainment systems in them things. But all of them have these unique designs where you might not see the same design twice. And, as I'm feeling, this sad, whatever it is, a bus passes me by. And on the back of the bus, it says, "Don't worry, be happy."
I love that.
And, obviously that's a Bob Marley quote, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for a little kid, for me, it felt like, God was saying, "Hey, man, don't take it so seriously, man. I
God
see
needed.
you. It's
God
cool."
knew you needed to see that exactly when you saw it.
It was like the dumbest, silliest thing. Like, you know what I'm saying? Where it felt like one of the things what my dad would do, where he would tell me a dumb joke just to make me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, it felt like my dad was trying to make me laugh.
Yeah.
You know, and it felt like my heavenly dad, was trying to make me laugh. Like, hey man, hey, snap out of it. It's Bob Marley, don't worry.
Yeah.
And it was special for me because from then, I was able to kind of do the same thing you did, where I was able to read the scriptures.
Yeah.
And it's such an important thing where you have to read the scriptures, like the Bible, and all those things to have your own relationship with it.
Yes. And I love that you said that it is a personal, because it is, like for you in that moment, that changed your life as a kid, Took me about 31 years to have my own experience, but that was my personal experience. And so we can't like say one thing or another is like more personal than like somebody else's experience, because your relationship with God is all individual.
As silly as you might think it is, but it's funny that you bring up, because I know that's such a huge thing for you to have a personal relationship with God. What does that mean to you specifically?
Well, I feel like it means everything to me, like I feel like my relationship with God, the more that I'm rebuilding that relationship, I just feel like a sense of peace. Like I feel like I'm not alone, and I say this all the time, but I feel like my whole life I felt alone, like I didn't really fit in culturally. I didn't obviously fit in, like I was growing up gay here. I was getting bullied in junior high, and then I would go home and feel like I still was getting bullied by my older brother. And so I never felt like I had a safe place. And so like me building my relationship with God is like my safe place, like chaos could be going on around the world or in my life, but as long as I like keep my eyes focused on him, I have no worry in the world. It's the craziest feeling how I've just like watched God, even in other people, strip away everything that I've always really struggled with, like even with some thoughts of like anxiety and depression and my struggles and temptations with alcohol and smoking weed. Like I see him strip away things immediately that I've struggled with my whole life. Like, is there a time that you remember God like stripping things away from you, or like how's that experience and maybe things you struggle with personally? Like, is that something you feel he's working on?
It's funny. It's funny that you say that. It's more, I feel like he's bringing people to me.
Yeah.
Where I always felt like I had to work for people's love and affections. I'm not saying people made me feel that way. You know what I'm saying?
Probably a lot to do with
my mother,
your mom,
obviously. But I always felt like I had to perform in a way. I had to be the best. I had to be the kindness, you know what I'm saying? Put on a good face to where people could love me, you know what I'm saying?
I'm sorry you felt that. That's horrible.
It just was what it was, And at the time, and I think that's why I was grateful for my relationship with my Heavenly Father, because he didn't solve it for me. But he did let me just go through that.
Yeah.
Where, because my fear was always that, you know, if people were to see just how, like, sad I was, or you know, however, you know what I'm saying, that they wouldn't, you know, rush to me, that I would be disappointed in them.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't rush to me with the same amount of love that I felt I was pouring out, like working really hard to give to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And in a strange way, that was like a self-defense type thing where, you know, I would kind of be okay with that, because if I think it would hurt more to be disappointed by people that I loved.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they couldn't show it back, you know what I'm saying, the same way that I was doing. Now, obviously, everyone has different ways of showing love, you know what I'm saying? But I think this was the Lord saying, you know, hey, it's okay to teach people how to love you, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
set those boundaries, you know. God
right.
wasn't boundaryless.
Right. For a boundless God, he's got boundaries.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things where I'm grateful that I still don't think I'm out of it yet. I still think that's one of the things where, because people confuse me a lot. You know what I'm saying? Where I feel like a lot of them aren't very direct, if I'm being honest. They're not straight with the words. They say one thing and they feel a different way, you know?
Yeah.
Which is probably one of the things I appreciate the most out of you, because whatever problem you have on your mind, you just say it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It can be a blessing and a curse, you know?
It can be.
Sometimes I overshare too much, but
see, that's the thing, is it's one of the things I love about my fiance, you know what I'm saying, is where she's always told me, like if there's something wrong, I'm going to tell you and we can work it out. Yeah. I'm not going nowhere. I'm here. You know, we can work
communication,
it out.
Baby.
Communication. You know what I'm saying? What's crazier is what I've learned over the years is comprehension might be more important.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree.
Like,
because
I feel
you can
like you
communicate all day.
You can communicate so you blue in the face.
Oh, I was in a relationship where this bitch couldn't comprehend shit. I'm communicating, but this bitch ain't comprehending. So yes, comprehension is way more important than communication.
You know, and it's kind of one of those things where, like, I've had to learn in previous relationships or whatever, you know, that you got to meet people where they're at. Yeah. And accept it for what it is. Yeah. Now, you can't want people to be, you know, deeper than they might actually be.
Right. You can't change people.
I can't.
Right? Yeah.
It's hard enough to change myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that might be one of the things where you just got to leave it to God.
Leave it to God. I feel like a lot of people lean on relationships or they desire relationships because in some sick way they think it's going to like help them heal from their trauma. But like, you don't jump into a relationship and expect your partner to heal you. That's not their job. Like, you come healed, right? Sure, there's some things that you guys can work on together. But like, there's a certain level of selfishness of some people that just, oh, I just want a man, then I'll be happier, and then I'll feel comforted or secure. Like, no, why don't you feel that already?
It's one of those things where I feel like, and I talk a lot about this with my fiance, where, you know, there are certain things that you got to work out as a couple, but understanding that she can't make you happy.
Yes.
I can't make her happy. We share our happiness together. We help each other as best as we can.
But I also feel like there's beauty in that as well, of like allowing your partner time, or allowing your partner to be there for you in times where you need them. That is very strong.
No, it's one of those things where, like, I was so uncomfortable the first few months of my relationship, not because she did anything wrong, but it was because I wasn't used to that presence. Yeah. Of like, oh damn, there's someone there
that cares.
You know what I'm saying? Cares, that gives a damn. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And they don't want anything from me. You know what I'm saying? They genuinely just want to help.
Well, I heard this example one time and it just like struck a chord with me, just going back to the, you know, allow your partner to be there for you. It's just like little comments, like when you come home from work and your partner asks you, how was your day? And you're obviously clearly upset and pissed off. You're like, it's fine. Like by you blocking out your like true emotions with your partner, you're robbing them the opportunity of bonding. That's like a bonding experience, you know. You're allowing them that opportunity to be there for you.
She's been such a huge blessing to me, you know.
I'm grateful that you have her. Although I've never met her.
Yeah.
I'll probably meet her for the first time
probably,
at the wedding.
You probably will at the wedding. We'll give you your dancing solo at the wedding.
Yeah.
For one night only. You know what I'm saying? I feel like because I'm kind of the same way. Like I freak out about like I have to have a certain like my room.
You're very quirky, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love that about you because there's certain things that you'll do or say, and I'm like, oh, that's a Steveism.
Hey, whoa, what do you mean? That's a new one for me.
Just like that's like you have a very quirky personality, and I love that. You're very specific with some things, like your pepperoni pizza.
Pepperoni pizza.
But I love that. It's so refreshing.
Shape of spoons. I'm very particular about that
too.
too.
Spoons. Yep.
I want it to be. Anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm very like, even with my own environment, it kind of gives me a feel of like control over my own life. Like if I don't have a lot, especially when I didn't feel like I had a lot of control going on in here or here.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, my environment and the perceived, like how I thought people perceived me, that was one of the few things I could control. It was one of the big reasons
that
why
you think.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Exactly.
Well, I just feel like the closer that I get to God, because I struggle with that too, of the control stuff, you know. But I feel like one of the big misconceptions is we think that the control is ours. We think that we can control these things, but it's not our control.
You're right,
you know, it's
right.
God's. And so I just feel like once I turn that into that aspect, I'm like, oh, well, I struggled my whole life with control, and I let it bury me to the fucking ground. But the second I realized that the control is not mine, it never was mine, it's God's, I feel like that's why I've been released of all of this stress and anger and pressure, because I was for so long trying to control my surroundings and the people in my life. It was never my control. Never was.
That's crazy. You know, it's kind of like that conversation we had earlier. You know, be still.
Be still. Yeah.
Be still and know that I am God. Man, that's crazy. Look at God.
I love that. Look at God.
You see how that came around? You see how that came around?
I love it. Well, we're at an hour and 25 minutes.
I think, oh, dang. I think that's plenty.
Is there anything, you want to say or like leave us with?
Obviously, there's still some things that I'm trying to work out for myself. Personally wise, things with God too that I'm trying to work out. But the biggest thing that's always stood out to me, it's one of my favorite TED Talks too, is where they talked about sometimes the difference between people who just make it, you know what I'm saying, and who are still going is grit.
Yep.
It's just the ability to just keep going.
Amen.
Like, and I love to think that, I hope that no matter how people feel today, they're still able to just put another foot in front of them.
Yes. Just keep doing that at the very minimum.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I feel like the blessing that God allows us is that now he might not illuminate the whole way, but he will show you a foot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the last thing I'd probably leave with everyone is whatever the situation that anybody's going through, I'm just praying that you'll still be here tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? I love you, appreciate you. I want you to be here tomorrow, and then the day after that. And the only thing that I know is like you only got to get it right once.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then I just hope that people will still be there for that blessing when it does come.
Yeah. And if they're not, let them.
Let them. Perfect.
Well, thank you, Steve. That was beautiful. I appreciate you in my life, and I appreciate you just being consistent. Even though 3 years I ghosted your ass, and you just kept coming back. And I love you so much, and I feel like this friendship's gonna go forever.
Love you and appreciate you, man. Same thing I would offer with any family and friends. We're always here. I'm always here. And you just gotta let them. Just gotta let them.
Okay,
that's the good way to end it.
Well, cheers. That's a wrap. Thank you guys for tuning into the Casualty podcast. This has been Steve Moeai, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Appreciate it.
I'll see you guys on the next episode.